Ah, I think we have this all sorted out. We're live now. You missed some great conversation between Rick and I. We were talking more about avoiding thunderstorms and all that kind of stuff, and I guess you'll just have to listen to the audio podcast. Hello, Andrew, Jeff, Nick, Jim, Tyler, Chris, and everyone else, and to all those who I did not mention. All right. Look at this. We're back.
You're back finally.
Rick and I were talking some more about the thunderstorm avoidance, and then Rick goes, "I don't think we're on the air." Oh yeah, it says the live button's not on, and there was no button for me to hit start broadcast or anything. So crazy.
Cray.
All right. Yeah. Nick says no burping, but he didn't say anything about.
I didn't hear that, but I know what you
Oh,
played.
you didn't? Oh, I know why.
There you go. Now I can hear myself.
Oh, can you?
Yep.
Well, let's see if it'll settle down.
Settle down. Second, Rick.
Start talking.
Hello. Airplane poster in the background. Yeah, it's gone.
Okay. Give the software a chance to figure out the cancellation.
Darn you, software.
I know. All right. So, as I said, if you want to hear the just beautiful answers that Rick and I had regarding the latter part of our discussion of deviating around thunderstorms, especially in a non-radar environment, I don't think we could possibly do it justice if we did it again. So we'll just have to tell you to listen to the audio. Like anybody's really going to do that.
Not happening.
No.
I don't think I'll listen to the audio.
I don't want to talk about it anymore. I have to listen to it because I have to edit the darn thing.
Okay. Yep. Alrighty. So.
Right. Okay. Here we are. We're back. That's interesting. It says open active hanging. I'm not going to touch anything else. Okay. So thanks, Ralph, for your question regarding finding holes in the storm clouds.
It was a good one. Thanks.
It was. Our good friend and chat room resident, Nick Acosta, sent us this. He said, here's a link to the corporate fact sheet for Atlas Air so that you guys can get an idea of what our business is like. We fill a pretty big niche in the industry, and I'm proud to say that we have the largest fleet of 747s in the world. And then he has a big old link to a PDF that I'll have in the show notes for everyone to check it out. So thanks, Nick, for that. Nige says, I would like to raise the subject of pressure on crews to meet punctuality targets. You often hear of passengers being told the gate is closed when they can see the aircraft still attached to the pier and of planes departing without hold baggage having been loaded. However, the worst case I've encountered I saw with my own eyes. A few years ago, I had just arrived in Pisa in Italy, and from my window seat was amazed to see a B-737 starting its takeoff run on the same runway as my flight had just landed on, but in the opposite direction. From the windsocks, I could see that this 737 was taking off with a substantial tailwind. As we taxied in, our pilot came on the PA to make sure passengers with a view out towards the runway could see what was happening, and making the point that while his airline always aimed to get to their destination on time, they wouldn't do so at any cost. His condemnation of the other pilot's decision was very evident from the tone of his voice. The airline concerned was one of Europe's biggest low-cost carriers, which often uses punctuality statistics in its marketing. I would be interested to know if you've ever felt pressure to act against your better judgment for the sake of punctuality, not diverting, etc. Nige. Thank you, Nige, for the question. And I feel very privileged and blessed that I fly for a company that we do, I wouldn't say get pressure, but they do emphasize the fact that we want to be operating our flights on time, leaving the gate on time, and arriving on time within that 15-minute DOT on time window. But and we've implemented a lot of procedures to help us with that. But largely the onus and the work that goes on by all of the other departments, like the ramp workers and getting the baggage loaded and getting the numbers into the load planning department so that they can work out the paperwork, the weight and data record, and send it in a timely manner to us. And the above wing stuff going on with catering and with cabin service, cleaning the airplane, and the gate agents starting the boarding process with enough time to get everybody on board and take care of any potential problems that might arise. I'd say that most of all that is what's really directly responsible for my company having a really, really good on time departure and arrival rating. And as far as pilots are concerned, and the control that we have is that we do our best to adjust our speeds and try to get shortcuts when we're running behind schedule, bumping up the speed to make up some time en route if it's a long enough flight to make a difference, or maybe even slowing down so we don't get to a destination when the gate is still occupied. And even though we still arrive on time, it's, psychologically to the passengers, it's like, well, we've been sitting on the ground for 15 or 20 minutes. And in my mind, in my head, that means we're late, even though sometimes when all that happens, we are actually arriving at the gate on time or early. But so we have some tools to manage all that, using our company's system and our flight management system to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. But sometimes things are out of our hands. The air traffic control system may have slots and traffic that they have to work us around, et cetera. And but the nice thing about my company is the fact that we don't really get a lot of undue pressure and stress put upon us by our flight operations department. We all know it's important to get there on time and leave on time, but if for some reason, for reasons that are out of our control, we don't depart on time or we don't arrive on time, I've never gotten that call from the chief pilot's office saying, "Hey Jeff, why is it that your flight, left so late, and why did it arrive so late?" That kind of thing. I've never ever gotten that kind of a call. So we don't. And I've flown with guys that have flown with different airlines, and they said, "Oh yeah, it can get really really bad on some of the airlines out there that really call their flight crews on the carpet saying, 'Hey, why were you late?' and put a lot of, I think, unnecessary stress on their pilot corps. And then you fly for an airline that's at least the cargo aspect is not really a scheduled operation, but I would imagine you probably still have some time pressures and constraints to worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are, and we do try to keep somewhat of a schedule, although really our schedules are really dictated by the availability of the cargo we're going to be taking, because there's no point of flying the aircraft to a certain airport and then flying out of that airport without the freight that we flew into that airport to pick up in the first place. And so if we have to wait, we have to wait. And when I used to fly passengers, same thing for us. I mean, if you, I mean, you're not really pressured into, I mean, you obviously want to keep an on-time schedule, and scheduled passenger travel really is about the schedule, because that's why it's called scheduled passenger travel. And, passengers are counting on the fact that, the flight leaves at X time and arrives at Y time, and you want to leave at that time and arrive at that time because that passenger has a connection, and, and there's other ramifications to that. But to the credit of the pilots of this low cost airline here, I can guarantee you that these guys didn't do anything that might have been deemed as unsafe. There are times, and you're going to be surprised, but there are times when you are going to have to take off with a tailwind. And aircraft, transport category aircraft, at least the Boeing airplanes that I've flown, are limited to a maximum tailwind component by Boeing of 15 knots. Now, my airline brings that tailwind limit down to 10 knots. So as long as you have a maximum of 10 knots tailwind and the runway is long enough for you to get to your rotate speed where you need to get to rotate speed, and your second segment is steep enough to keep you clear of all your closing obstacles, then you're legal to do it. Now I can provide an example here. Many times, and I can think of one airport here, Basel in Switzerland. The takeoff from runway 15, usually the prevailing winds at the Basel airport are usually southeast to northwest. So the takeoff and landing runway is usually runway 15. When we land in Basel, we will land in runway 15, and our parking spot is at the very, very, very end, the far end of the airport. So you basically land on runway 15 and you taxi all the way to the end of the runway, and you're making a left, and that's where our parking spot is. And so when we take off, the way the airport is set up, the obstacles and the terrain to the southeast of the airport is a lot higher than the obstacles and the terrain to the northwest of the airport. And also the taxi time, the amount of time that it would take us to get from our parking spot to the beginning of runway 15 is a lot longer than that, that time and distance from our parking spot to the beginning of runway 33. And so we'll look at the winds, we'll look at the temperature, we'll look at our weight, and we'll look at the type of tailwind component that we have to deal with. And if the numbers add up for us to take off from runway 33, even if we have a bit of a tailwind, then we'll take runway 33, because interestingly enough, we'll be able to take off with more weight with a tailwind, because the obstacles at the end of runway 33 are lower than the obstacles at the end of runway 15. So it's not only, you don't only need to keep in mind what the prevailing winds are, even though, customarily you take off and land into the wind. Sometimes taking off with a tailwind is the appropriate thing to do. And as I said at the beginning, I can guarantee you that these guys did not do anything that would have put the passengers, the aircraft, or themselves in any kind of danger. Because if something went wrong, at the hearing, the lawyers were to be like, well, why did you take off with this kind of wind, knowing that you were not going to be able to take off with this kind of wind? So I can tell you, we do want to keep a schedule. We do want to operate as safely as possible. And we do take all these things into consideration. And it's not only about the wind or the runway, it's all about the big picture. You want to step back, take a couple of steps back and look at the big picture. And if a tailwind takeoff is the way to go, then, you just do a tailwind takeoff, as long as it's within that, limit, either 10 knot or 15 knot limit that the manufacturer or your airline has put on your operations manual.
Right. We have the same limit, 10 knots, but there are other cases where it may be safer to take off with the runway that has the tailwind, like, for instance, in the thunderstorm season. It could be that there's some kind of a cell that's kind of blocking your departure path, and you wouldn't want to take off in that direction, even though that's where the headwind is. And if your takeoff performance data supports a safe takeoff with all the appropriate safety margins, then yeah, it might be best to use the runway that has up to a 10 knot tailwind. So
exactly right.
Yeah. And I agree with Rick. I doubt that the airline, which was a competitor, I'm sure, of this particular flight that they were on, or airline they were on, wanted to kind of gig them a little bit. But in all reality, I'm sure that whatever they did was legal.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's a great question. Thank you. Let's see. Who was it that was asking? Nige. Thank
Yeah,
you.
nice.
I'm going to skip the couple right after that, and I'm head over to engine difference training
Okay.
from Matty Fab.
Ooh.
Just a quick question, probably more for Rick than anyone. When flying the same plane, for example, the 777 that has a choice of engines, do you have to take any difference training before allowing to fly with the different engines, GE90s, Pratt & Whitneys, Trents, etc., or do they all perform the same, have the same startup, shutdown, emergency procedures?
Well, the 777, we only operate 777s with G90s, but I can tell you about the 767s because we used to fly 76s with the CF6s, General Electric, and the Pratt & Whitney engines, the 4064s, I believe they were. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember. It's been a long time, but yeah, basically Pratt & Whitney and GE. No difference training, no. But on your flight crew operations manual and your flight crew training manual, you'd basically have the startup procedures for each. I remember that one of the things that would basically separate one from the other was that in the start procedure for the CF6, the GE engine, you would engage the starter and then wait for 20% N2. And at 20% N2, you would manually bring the fuel control switch to the run position. And the difference between the CF6 and the Pratt & Whitney was that in the Pratt & Whitney, once you started the engine and the N2 started rotating, you had to wait for max motoring speed on the N2. And max motoring speed means that the N2 will not increase by 1% in less than 25 seconds. So, and that would usually occur at about the 25% N2 mark. So you'd get to 24%, and then 3 seconds later, it'll get to 25%, and then it would take the engine over 5 seconds to accelerate 1 more percent. So that's when you're at the max motoring speed, and you would start the engine then. Couple other differences as well, temperatures and oil pressures and stuff like that. But that is all basically laid out in the manual for you. Really no differences training there. But that's what I got on that. Good question though.
Yeah. So basically, the bottom line is that any of the airplanes that I've ever flown where there are a couple different engine models, for instance, right now the airplane that I'm flying, the
Oh
MD-8,
yeah.
MD-90, one has a low bypass JT
8.
8. Thanks. I don't know why I always confuse it with the 9. A JT8D series engine, and then the MD-90 with the IAE 25, 20, 25, 28, I believe, engine. And, and that's the higher bypass engine and has the FADEC system and everything else. Quite a few differences there, but we didn't really, it was included when we got our differences training when we learned to fly, or were allowed to fly the MD-90 as well as the MD-88 at Acme. And basically, it's just a quick, this is the difference. And you have the quick reference handbook that, gives you what to do in case you have a problem with whatever particular engine or airplane that you're using that has that particular engine. But I've never flown an airplane where you're flying the same airplane basically and they have different engines. But I still don't think that you'd require any extra training for differences on the engine. That's just something that they would include in the training when you were getting checked out.
Remember one thing you had to keep in mind was, the reasons to abort a start on the CF6 were different than the reasons to abort a start on a Pratt & Whitney engine. So those are the kind of things that you want to keep in mind. And since we used to fly both hand-me-down 76s from other airlines and brand new 76s that we got, we used to have a check on the flight deck that we used to do before the pre-flight checklist called the configuration check, in which you would go through the aircraft and open through the overhead panel and the panel in front of you and the aisle stand, noting the differences between this 767 and another 767, because even though it's the same airplane, it's a different variant. And so, that's something that you would keep in mind as well, just to basically, get you situated in the kind of aircraft and the type of aircraft, the variant of the 767 that you're flying that day.
It sometimes does get a little confusing, because we have all of our MD-90s have come from various airlines, and they all seem to be a little bit different. Like for instance, when we do the first flight of the day items, one of them is checking the cockpit door access system and an automatic locking system and that kind of thing. And there's a code that you enter, and
Mm-hmm.
we go through the procedure to check that. And sometimes you hear that tone, which is different in every one of them, I think. And then you're kind of looking up at the overhead panel, going, okay, where is that? Like, oh, there it is. It's way up there. It's like in a different place than you're used to. But yeah, it's just something that you have to deal with in
Yep.
this day and age. So thanks for that. Jumping over here to the one feedback on episode 186, the RC 135 story from Carl. He says, another great show. I thought I would send along a short comment. This is getting confusing. A long and a short comment on the story of the RC 135 incident at Offutt Air Force Base. I flew as a crew member on the RC 135 for over 5,000 hours. We would do our egress training and knew we could get out in a hurry, but rarely got to practice that. I can remember taking off facing aft and looking back at the rear of the jet where a fire started. It became almost routine. I was glad to see the crew do the right thing and get out safely and quickly. I thought you might like to share the attached link from the official Air Force website on the history of the RC in the desert over the past 25 years. I guess it makes me feel old that I was on the third jet flying missions down there 25 years ago. And so he sent us a link there that I'll include in the show notes.
Cool.
And thank you, Carl, for that. Let's see. This is from Shane. It says, hello, Captain Jeff, flight crew. Love listening to the podcast you produce. I'm currently listening to episode 186 here at the Reno airport, waiting to catch my flight back to where I hail in Seattle. The past few days, I've been getting more sun than I should and watching the air races, something I would recommend everyone do at least once in their life. Every time I go, I get this childlike awe, just seeing airplanes built for pure speed, racing each other 100 feet over the ground, 30 meters for those of you over the pond. But back to the feedback. I have my CFI check ride coming up in a couple of weeks, and I was wondering if you guys have any nuggets of wisdom from your years of flying experience that you would have wished to known earlier. Anyway, keep the shows coming because you have a listener till the end. And again, that's Shane from the Seattle area. Thank you for your kind words, Shane. Any advice for him? Now, this was sent on the 19th of September, more than a month ago. I'm wondering if he had his check ride already.
He probably did, and he probably rocked it. He definitely rocked it.
Yeah, so you didn't need any advice from us.
But in case you do, no, just pace yourself. It's one more flight, really. You shouldn't fly any different because it's a check ride. Understandably, you're going to be a little, nervous and all that, but just work through that and fly the flight as you do any other flight because it's really all it is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's see. I'll throw this in the feedback as well from our good friend, the pre-fly by guy. Too many rhyming words there. Don Sebastian. He said, sorry for the repeated emails, but anyway, I guess he was sending it to the wrong address. No problem. We're with you, man. And this is in regard to that story of the, or not story, but the incident that it was what was the airplane? It was a Citation. I forgot what the model is.
560 XL.
560 XL. Thank you.
Out in San Francisco, I think.
Out of San Francisco International, and the door came open, and so he sent some information about the rest of the story and some interesting stuff and operational procedures for when a door opens up and that kind of thing. So I'll it looks like he may have sent us a recording. Oh, our first audio.
Cool.
Can you believe we've been going almost 2 hours and we haven't had any audio feedback yet? So
I think that's about the time we get him.
Okay, let's give this a shot. Let's see what happens.
Hi, Captain Jeff, and all you APG fans out there. Don Sebastian here, the pre-buy guy. Let's talk about the door that came off the Citation jet in San Francisco. The Citation 560 XL has a pretty strong door. It's also an air stair, and it drops down. Passengers can climb up the stairs. And when it's closed, it's up to the crew, pilot or co-pilot, very general aviation, to make sure that not only is in the closed position, but the locked position. And to do that, you also have to verify that all the pins that hold it in the locked position are all the way in the locked position. There's little indicator windows to look in to see if they're all in the green. And on the older Citation I did last week in Nashville, that had a different kind of door, even though it's the same model airplane. It had a door that opens like your house door from right to left. And if that door comes off, if that door opens in flight, it'll probably come off. It'll break its hinges. And after the door's open, I go pull it up and down and see if there's any play in the hinges. And if there is, that's a squawk. But the one I saw one where that kind of door came off and went over the top of the wing and under the engine at 20,000 feet, and they landed safely. And chances are the door was closed by a passenger, and the handle only went to the middle position where there's an indent to lock it, where you have to go past that indent all the way to the right to lock it, and then back to the middle position, and a pin comes down and holds the handle from moving. So a passenger doesn't know that. So that's why it's so important for the crew and the flight crew only to close and lock the door and look at the indicators. But on all these airplanes, it's not on a checklist, but during your pre-flight, there's no law against it. You could shake hands with these doors. Yeah, you push it back and forth and left and right. And matter of fact, last year I was shaking hands with the right airline on the same type of airplane, Cessna Citation, and I found an airline hinge coming apart. So after you did it once, then you'll know the next time if it doesn't feel right. Well, have a good day, everybody, and Godspeed, and blue skies above and light winds below.
That's what she said.
That is what she said.
No, hey, that was great feedback. Thank you, Don, for. I think I keep saying pre-fly, but it's actually pre-buy guy. No fly in there, but of course there is some flying, but not in his name. All right, so thanks for that, and I'll put the appropriate links in the show notes. Shall we keep on moving on, or do you want to?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Are you want to keep going?
No, let's go on a little bit longer here.
Let's do it, man.
Okay, are we still on air?
Did we turn the recorder on?
Yeah, I remember to do that. So let's continue. Matt writes, not sure if you've seen this or not, but the reporting actually made me laugh out loud. Talk about over dramatizing a story, especially the landing 20 meters from the end of the runway. Anyway, here's the link if you fancy using it on the show. And so here's a link from express.co.uk, and the headline here: I thought I was going to die. A Tenerife flight with 200 passengers makes an emergency landing. So let's see. Passengers were told by the pilot, "This is not a drill," said as the Thomson Airlines flight landing flaps failed just as it was about to land at Cardiff Airport in the early hours of yesterday morning.
Oh, the landing flaps failed. Which ones were those?
They're different from the takeoff flaps.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I think they're, I don't know where they are. People were crying, and one woman even fainted as passengers were told to take the brace position. Pregnant women were moved from their seats, and those sitting in emergency exits were told that they may need to open the doors, but not if the wing is on fire. After coming in to land the plane carrying about 200 people, pulled up again because the landing flaps, which reduced the plane's speed, were not opening. No, okay, again, landing flaps do not reduce the plane's speed. It allows the airplane to fly more slowly. Okay. There's a difference between the two. The pilot managed to
Yes.
circle the city for 20 minutes to lose fuel, and then landed 20 meters from the end of the runway, where fire engines were. I guess they mean that it stopped with 20 meters to spare from the end of the runway, which is what, about 60, 70 feet, something like that.
60 feet. What? Really?
Yeah.
Or did he touch down like 60 feet from the beginning of the runway?
I don't know. It doesn't really, who knows?
This is great writing here. Can I just commend whoever wrote this article?
So, I think that the passengers are just making a little bit more of it than they probably should have. And that, the pilots were doing the right thing, saying, hey, we have a little situation here, and we're going to be coming in a little faster, and it's going to take a little bit longer to stop, and that sort of thing. But I don't know. How long is a runway at Tenerife? I don't even know.
It's a long runway.
Or
there's Tenerife North and Tenerife South. I don't know how much Tenerife it is.
This flight came from Tenerife. They landed at Cardiff. I don't know what the runway length is there. And if it was something that they thought was going to be a problem, they would have picked a different airport that had a longer runway.
Yeah, and just guys and gals, whenever there's a situation where we're not going to have our regular landing configuration for A or B or C reason, we go through what's called a landing analysis chart, in which we'll plug in all the variables, what the aircraft condition is as far as high lift devices, flap settings, availability of thrust reversers, wheel brakes deactivated, and all that kind of stuff, and we'll see if the runway available or the runway that we've selected is going to be long enough for us to stop on that runway. So it's not like we go, oh, airport right there, let's try landing there. No, we go, and before we commit, we know that we're going to get the aircraft stopped on the runway. So, just rest easy at night knowing that, we've planned for that. So.
Yeah, but Rick, here's a quote from one of the passengers.
Okay.
There was a very real chance of dying. I was terrified. You know what, Sarah? Every single day, there's a very real chance of you dying from something.
Exactly. So if you don't want to run that risk, just don't get out of bed.
That's right. Stay in bed. Don't go outside, and don't pick up any knives or anything that's sharp.
Exactly. Just lay there.
Charlie Pammer. I think that's the way you pronounce this person's name. Charlie or Charlie?
Yep, Charlie Pammer.
Love your podcast, even though I'm not an aviation aficionado, but only someone who uses flights to get to his vacation spot. I want to chime in on the repeating subject of manual flying skills. I agree with your take. When I sit in the back, I want to have a captain who can get the bird down safe when the automation fails. I want to give an example for another domain. I'm just back from Paris. I went there because of the European Heritage Days, which allow a glimpse behind the scenes into buildings or institutions that you cannot access normally. In Paris, the local transportation authority that runs the subway system, aka the metro, gave tours of control centers and maintenance facilities. During one of their tours, I learned the following fact. Most Parisian subway lines are equipped with an automated driving mode where the engineer only has to open and close the doors. Acceleration and braking is done by the computer. But during each shift, the engineer is forced to do one run along the line in manual mode, where he operates the controls in order to keep up his skills. They want to be able to move people around even if the automation fails. Quite a sensible approach, don't you think? Keep up the good work, and cheers from Germany. Charlie Pammer. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. So if they have to do this once during their shift, every single time they come into work, they're keeping those essential skills honed. That's a great idea.
Absolutely. When all else fails, you are all that's left. You need to know what to do.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks, Charlie. Our good friend Nick Carson wrote in back on the 21st of September saying that he has received a job offer at Southwest Airlines to become a ramp agent for them as soon as he graduates from high school this May. Yay.
All right.
So let's see. I first flew them a couple of years ago, and it never seemed more real than now. With the motivated assistance from the APG community, I am getting all the things I dream about. Thanks for creating an awesome show, and I look forward to each one of them. So he said he sent this feedback uh, to the entire APG community. So it wasn't just Rick and Dr. Steph and I, but all of you out there listening. He wants to thank. So
That's awesome, Nick. Congratulations, man.
yeah, and it's a shame that we didn't get a chance to meet you up in Asheville back in, when was that? Was that?
That was last month, right? September?
Yeah, September. That's it. Would have looked forward to it, but we understand you had some scheduling, issues and that kind of thing. But you never know. One of these days. Let's see. Paul writes, "Love the podcast. You three keep me company every night while I clean up after my 2-year-old goes to bed. I'm an aviation enthusiast, the kind who would watch planes land and take off for hours at a time, and the kind who feels a sense of excitement whenever a whiff of Jet A exhaust comes my way."
Oh, yeah.
And Paul, I think that describes most of us who not only listen to the show, but actually produce the show. Yes, sir?
No, I was going to say that I went to MIA today to the airport and do a little aircraft spotting, and I was there from about 2:30 to about 6 p.m. today. So I totally hear you. It's great stuff.
Nothing better than the smell of burnt Jet A in the air.
I tell you, they should make a cologne out of that.
Yeah, they should. Okay, though you guys might enjoy this video of a mad dog taking off from St. Martin, if you watch in full screen, or no, thought you guys might. He left a T off on that. Thought you guys might enjoy this video of a mad dog taking off from St. Martin. If you watch in full screen, you'll see a nice red glow from the rear of the engines. I recall seeing a red glow in 2 instances. On a hot Las Vegas evening, my plane was passing by an idling 737 with the CMF 56 engines, and I could see a faint red glow emanating from the high-pressure turbine. The other time was on takeoff from LAX at night on a 747-400 with GE CF6 engines. During climb out, you could actually see the nozzle area glowing red in the darkness. Is this something that pilots see on a regular basis when sitting behind traffic at night? Yes, actually it is. Sometimes it has to be right at the right angle to see some of the innards of the engine and the hot section of the engine. But it's not unusual at night to see that, especially if you're pretty close.
It gets to 900 degrees centigrade, at takeoff thrust. So
that's hot.
That is pretty hot. It's so hot that takeoff thrust is limited to 10 minutes because of that very fact.
Yeah, because you can start melting stuff back there, right?
Yes, sir. You don't want that.
Let's see. There is a video that he was sent a link to. He says, "I was wondering if Miami Rick was on board for this landing." And so I just clicked on this link, and I see a really, really nice, beautiful airplane coming into land. It looks like it's a twin. It's a large twin. It says LAN on the side. The star in the back, and a little bit windy, it looks like, landing at Schiphol.
I wonder who that was.
Wow. Whoever was flying this thing rolled it on. Of course, I mean, how could not with all those wheels?
Then it was me.
I'm thinking it probably wasn't you. Yeah, I'm sure it was Rick.
July the 25th. I'd have to go back to my logbook, but
yeah,
I don't know. Might have been.
Yeah, could have been. Or if it wasn't Rick, it was somebody. I'm sure that Rick taught. I don't know. Nice landing. Anyways,
that is nice.
Fantastic show. Keep it up. Cheers, Paul. Thank you, Paul. I don't know. I'm starting to get tired, actually.
Are you?
Yeah. Or you want to? Let's get. Okay. I got it. I got it from that reaction. I'm going to continue here. Let's see. Benjamin Choi. He says, first of all, thank you for a great show. A colleague at work put me onto your podcast several months ago, and I've not missed an episode since. I just wanted to add my little story about yet another drone incident
Ooh.
that I
Ominous.
experienced yesterday, the 27th of September. Hey, we're within a month now.
Nice.
Flight instructor out of Bankstown, YSBK, which is a fairly busy general aviation airport in the western suburbs of Sydney, Australia. My student and I had just done a quick navigation flight into Sydney Harbor, which is a spectacular scenic flight, by the way. And I've attached a few pictures of the view from past flights I've done. We were on final approach into runway 11 center when my student asked, "What's that?" With some surprise, I looked over there, and there was a quadcopter drone flying 50 to 100 feet away from us. Fortunately, we passed by without incident for an uneventful landing. I reported it to Tower, which you can hear from 8:15 in the below live ATC recording. ATC were great and quickly informed all inbound aircraft of the hazard. So let me go to 8:15 on this.
By the way, those are beautiful pictures. You see the Opera House there?
Yeah.
That is awesome. Sydney Harbor. Wow.
Okay, let's see. I think I have it now.
Thanks, Tower. Tango Victor Pub, there was a drone on final airborne on the final for runway 11 left. Tango Whiskey Kilo, caution drone activity on the short final for runway left. Tango Whiskey Kilo. Tango Victor Pub, hold short runway left. Hold short runway 1.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Like it's been said, I'm sure we are preaching to the choir here, but I'm sure this is a growing problem, unfortunately. Yeah, it is. And as Rick and I have said many, many times, it's just a matter of time before something bad is going to happen with a collision with one of these darn things.
Yep. The feds want you to register your drones from now on, boys and girls.
Yep. So they can come after you when an airplane crashes into it.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm hoping that will have some positive effect.
It has to. I wish they'd do it, retroactively, like to all those other drones, but then it'd be kind of hard to do. But
yeah,
at least this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and the other problem is that there are a lot of drones out there that are like built that are not manufactured by a company, but they're are home built. But I think the people that are doing the home built drones probably are the ones that know a little bit about how to operate them safely and where they're supposed to operate them. I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah, I'm worried about Joe and Jane who have no idea what they're doing. That's who worries me.
And they're the ones that are more likely probably to buy something off the shelves at Walmart or whatever, or Amazon or whatever. Okay, moving on. Stuart in Edmonton, Canada, sent this in. He said, "Hope this email finds you well and in better spirits after your recent family loss." Well, thank you. My Facebook news feed was lit up by friends and family back in Glasgow, Scotland today. This was on the 29th of September, with lots of people taking pics of this aircraft overhead. And he has a picture of, looks like Flight Radar 24, I believe, that shows the track of some flight going all over that part of the continent, or not the continent, of UK, up in the Scotland area.
Yep.
And it's from the heraldscotland.com news. Erratic flight path of mystery jet over Scotland leaves plane spotters baffled. Now, I can say that if they're getting this track, that means that it's using a transponder.
Mm-hmm.
If it's trying to fly undetected, then they're pretty stupid. Because if you want to do that,
if you're trying to fly undetected, then epic fail.
Yeah, turn the transponder off. So I would imagine that the authorities knew that this was happening. So anyway, going on, it says initial reports said it was an RAF Sentinel surveillance aircraft. It's based on the Bombardier Global Express ultra long range business jet. doing circles across the south and west of Scotland, overflying populated areas at 43,000 feet. And then he has a link to the Wikipedia article about the Raytheon Sentinel. However, a spokeswoman for Air Traffic Control Service, NATS, said the plane was definitely not a commercial aircraft and suggested it was probably a military jet. And a spokeswoman for the Ministry of Defense confirmed that it did not belong to the British military. Wouldn't the policy be to intercept if the aircraft is unknown and flying over populated areas, since it appears to have no filed flight plan?
No, I'm sure that the ATC knew what was going on there, and I see how they would want to keep the transponder on there because that is very, very congested airspace, and that looks a lot like a flight test like pattern. It looks kind of like what we did up in the Washington State area when we took our 777 up for the first time.
Uh-huh.
You kind of loiter around one area, and you obviously you keep your transponder on, and you're in constant contact with ATC. I mean, I don't know exactly what this is, but obviously the transponder is on, and obviously ATC knows what's going on there because the transponder is on. And
I think that maybe these spokeswomen were probably new, or maybe they didn't, but somebody did. Somebody knew what was going on.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure, this was something that was cleared with somebody.
And I'm pretty sure it wasn't an alien spacecraft or anything like that, because I'm not sure that they would know how to mimic, or maybe they do. Maybe they're smarter than we think. Maybe they know how to mimic a transponder return. No. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I meant to talk about this on a previous show, and I've just never gotten to it. This was an incident that occurred, and I'm scratching my head over this one. I don't know if we know anything more about this one or not, but it was quite an eventful flight for the pilot of a regional jet Tuesday, and that would have been the 29th of September, I think, of a regional jet. It was a flight between Dallas-Fort Worth International and McAllen Miller Airport near the Texas-Mexico border. The flight was normal until the final approach, and a plane spotter, photographer, at the end of the runway, snapping pics, caught quite an unusual sight. And right at the moment or one of the frames that he snapped was this airplane rolling to the right and making contact with the right wingtip on the runway. Let's see. It was a U.S. Airways Express jet, I think operated by, who was it by? Mesa.
Is that a 700?
It looks like it is it's either a 7 or 900. Here, I'm trying to scroll down to see if I can find out any more information about it. It's definitely not a 200.
No, it's not a 200. I think it's a 700. Looks like a 700.
Yeah. So right now I'm still on a little bit of an adrenaline rush, considering what I saw. What I witnessed could have been a lot worse. Thank God nobody was hurt, said the plane spotter, Juan Diego de la Garza. So apparently, it doesn't look like, I think one of the articles I was looking at that were referring to this incident, the METAR, the weather observations at the time showed like very little wind, and it wasn't like they had strong gusting crosswinds or anything else. And I don't believe that the preceding aircraft landing ahead of them was a big heavy airplane, because this is a pretty small airport. And so I don't think that this was due to a wake turbulence encounter, but I don't really know exactly what happened here. But we'll put a link to this article in the show notes. Maybe by now somebody knows some information about what happened here.
Yeah, I saw the incident. I read about the incident, but I never really followed up on it, and I never heard anything from it again. So. But I don't particularly think it was a windy day.
No. I think, it was one of the forums, one of the pilot forums or whatever, was discussing this, and I don't think anybody really knew for sure exactly what happened there. Let's see. Well, you know what? Let's do one more here.
You got it.
Timo is going to. Did I already read Timo's? Like I remember saying his name, but perhaps not. He says, "Hi, Captain Jeff, Dr. Steph, Miami Rick. I started listening to your show at episode 180, and I really like it. I've been listening to the Omega Tau podcast, and Marcus told me there that he had discovered your podcast. So I checked in, and I'm a fan since. Thank you. And thank you, Marcus, if you're still listening to us. As contrast to the usual community member, which seems to be either pilots or people having to do with air traffic or air sim people, I've never even flown as a passenger in an aircraft until some months ago. Then I had to go on a business trip and had some flights. Zurich, Switzerland to Dresden, Germany, 1.05 hour flight time, and an Avro RJ100. I was really surprised. I don't. What is an Avro RJ100?
It looks like a BAE 146. It's a high wing with 4 engines.
Okay.
T-tail with an air brake and the back of the fuselage. Basically, the back of the fuselage, the very aft cone, kind of opens, and it's a very, very effective air brake.
Okay.
It's an older type airplane, but it's still flying around. Actually, there's they have one and they have one down in Santiago, the Santiago airport, that's used by a mining company. They use that airplane to move the executives from this mining company from Santiago to wherever the mine is up north. I don't know, but it's still around. Yeah, nice airplane.
Okay, cool. So he goes on and says, I was really nervous at first, even looked up the plane in Wikipedia to have some information about what to expect. But somehow things started to get quite funny. Everybody else seemed to be quite indifferent about flying that flight, but I discovered all the security things and procedures, parts of the plane, little details, when the pilots and crew did what action, what should come next, things I knew about from listening to so many podcast episodes, mostly Omega Tau. It was great. I really liked how the crew and pilots, since this was a quite small plane, were saying goodbye in person when we exited the plane. And we talked about that on a previous episode, didn't we, Rick? About the importance of, saying goodbye and stuff.
Absolutely. Just you want that human contact, a human touch.
That's right. Somehow I felt grateful for their work every time, and I thanked them while leaving. I don't know if this is common, but I was quite grateful. I would probably also thank the train operator of an intercity train, given the chance. I just like showing that their work matters. So that was my experience as a passenger. While listening to episode 184, the part where Jeff talked about announcing the delay of his flight personally to the passengers at the airport, I thought I probably would feel quite safe and in good hands when being a passenger of Captain Jeff. Thank you. I just had to share this thought, and then this grew to a longer feedback. It happens. Thanks again for the podcast. I'm looking forward to many more episodes. Best wishes, Timo. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And I'm glad your first experience as a passenger in an airplane was a positive one. And, as we always say, knowledge is power. I think the more we know about things, the better it is, the better the experience. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's it. I'm tired. It's 12:30 a.m.
It is. It is morning time here in the East Coast of the United States.
Maybe later on today, Rick and I will get back together with Dr. Steph, and we'll record at least the first part of episode 192, the normal weekly show. This has just been an extra show, trying to keep up or catch up with some of the feedback. So again, thanks for hanging out with us. You know the normal drill. Airlinepilotguy.com to get to the show notes and the links and all the other jazz. And so anything else to say, Rick, before we sign this thing off?
No, I just wanted to say and thank all of you guys and gals for that great feedback. Keep it coming. And as we always say, if we don't answer your specific question on the show, it's not like we haven't read it. We'll get to you. We'll get back to you either personally or it might take a little while to get to your question, but every single piece of feedback is very important to it. So keep them coming. This show happens because of you guys and gals. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. It was great.
As we like to say, if we haven't read your feedback on the show, we've rejected it. No, I'm just kidding. Not true.
That's not true.
I know it's not true at all. Okay, well, enough. It's time. I'm getting punchy. It's time for me to go to bed, get some sleep. And the rest of you, especially those of you who are still in the chat room, you need to do the same. So until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Thank you, y'all. Woohoo!
Ta-da! Okay, that's 53 minutes, and I think it was about an hour and 30. So that's about two and a half hour show.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. All right. Well, we made a dent, a big dent this time.
It was a big dent. It was a big dent this time. I can tell you that it really was. We are almost to halfway down that folder there.
Yeah. So
good stuff.
Yeah, we're getting there. All right. Well, let's see. Is anybody still there in the chat room? Looks like it.
Yep. A lot of people there.
We're going to need lots of beer. What's this all about they're talking about?
I don't know. It says,
APG convention and conference. Well, if we're going to do one of those, I'm certainly not going to plan it. Done that once, and I'm not going to do it again. It's too much work. Paid a lot of money to do it. And who's going to pay me? Me? Oh, man. All right. Well, good night, y'all, or good morning. And we'll hopefully you'll be able to hang out with us tonight.
Yeah, really. We're looking forward to having you all along again for tonight's episode of the regular scheduled APG.
Yep. And sorry for all the technical snags, but it happens. Oh, well.
That's the fun part. I mean, the behind the scenes, right?
Yeah. Right.
You're like, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and your eyes twitching.
All right. I'm going to hit the stop broadcast button, and hopefully it'll do something like
See you,
stop.
everybody.
Take care.